The Pandora Protocol. The champagne glass trembled in my hand as I watched my own success being stolen from me, one eloquent lie at a time. My name is Nadia, and for 3 years, I had been the invisible architect behind Sterling Tech Solutions' most profitable product launch. While everyone else celebrated in the gleaming conference room of our Manhattan office, I sat in the back corner, watching Chad Sterling, our newly appointed VP, bask in glory that rightfully belonged to me. Chad had joined the company just 8 months ago, armed with an MBA from Wharton and a smile that could sell ice to Eskimos. I had built the entire operational framework from scratch. Every supplier protocol, every risk management procedure, every continuity plan that had made this launch possible had come from my sleepless nights and weekend sacrifices. The Sterling success story, as the trade magazines were calling it, was actually the Nadia's blood, sweat, and tears story, but nobody seemed interested in that version. Chad stood at the front of the room like a conquering hero, his PowerPoint slides flashing behind him, showing impressive graphs and metrics built on the foundation I had carefully constructed. Not once did he mention my name. After Chad's speech ended to thunderous applause, I tried to slip out quietly. But as I reached for my coat, Chad intercepted me, holding 2 glasses of champagne. Nadia, he said, his voice dripping with condescension. You're really good at organizing things, you know. All that behind-the-scenes stuff, those quiet victories. I respect that. I took the champagne glass without speaking, my jaw clenched tight. Chad leaned in closer, his breath hot against my ear. But now it's time for the grown-ups to talk strategy, sweetheart. You're great at cleaning up, but we're eating steak now. You're nothing here anymore. Just enjoy the party. He winked and walked away, leaving me frozen in place while the jazz music and laughter swirled around me. The champagne glass shook in my hand, and for a moment, I thought I might throw it across the room. Instead, I set it down gently and pulled out my phone. That night, I went home to my Brooklyn apartment and did something I had been unconsciously preparing for months. I opened my laptop and created a new folder, hidden deep in my file system. I named it Pandora. Inside, I began organizing every document, every email, every meeting note that proved my role in the project's success. Everything was time-stamped, everything was documented, everything was irrefutable. I had always been meticulous, but now I understood why. Somewhere deep down, I had known this day would come. The following week, my calendar became suspiciously empty. Tessa from HR called me in to inform me that I was being transferred to a lower-level department to focus on your core strengths. I signed the transfer papers without protest. My core strength is knowing exactly how every moving part of this machine works, I said quietly. Within days, my system access was downgraded. Chad was systematically cutting me off from every important department. But Chad had made a crucial mistake. He had never read the operational framework he was claiming credit for. If he had, he would have discovered something interesting on page 73 of the Continuity Operations binder. In Appendix D, under Policy Owner, there was a line filled in 6 months earlier. My name, my signature, my authorization. I was the official policy owner for all post-launch operational protocols. Chad could restructure the org chart all he wanted, but he couldn't change the legal documentation that gave me ultimate authority over the systems he was trying to control. From my basement exile, I watched Chad implement his vision. He made deals with new suppliers at lightning speed, bypassing all my approval processes. His LinkedIn posts became increasingly boastful. Through backdoor access I still maintained, I reviewed his contracts. The first one, with a Nevada logistics company, violated my protocols with a clause about delivery penalty waivers. The second contract had no escalation procedures at all. Instead of confronting Chad, I forwarded both contracts to legal with a professional note identifying the conflicts. Silence. Days passed. I printed the contracts and Chad's non-response, placing them in a red folder labeled When. Then, I waited. My automated escalation protocols were still embedded in the system's backend. If these suppliers failed, my protocols would trigger automatically, with my name as the approving authority. The Friday morning that changed everything started like any other. At my basement desk, my screen lit up with an alert. Supplier warning, fulfillment partner B has exceeded escalation threshold. Level 1 activated. The Nevada Logistics Company had failed to meet their East Coast delivery deadline. Poor coordination, delayed shipping, mislabeled packages, everything my protocols had been designed to prevent. At 9:29 a.m., I heard Chad's voice booming from above. What the hell is this? Why am I getting red flagged for some warehouse disruption? Jordan Kim, the operations leader, explained, it's the automated escalation protocol for continuity processes. I didn't approve any protocol, Chad snapped. Where did this come from? Policy owner embedded it in the previous cycle. Protocol 2C3 automatically escalates unless overridden. Then override it. Can't do that. Not without policy owner approval. My dashboard doesn't even show override privileges. A pause. What the hell is a policy owner? Nadia Vance. The silence was so complete I could hear my own heartbeat. She doesn't even work in strategic anymore. Doesn't matter. Her name is listed. I'm not touching anything without a request from her. Chad never came to my desk. He never demanded an explanation. He didn't know how to respond because he had never read the framework he was claiming credit for. I opened my red when folder and documented everything. No glee, no triumph. Just the quiet rhythm of a woman who had built her walls before the fire started. The crisis multiplied over the weekend. 2 more disruptions occurred from Chad's other partner. Customer support tickets piled up. The compliance department flagged liability gaps. By Monday, our chief legal officer had escalated the issue. The email in my inbox was cold. Board session, post-launch governance review. Chad walked into that leadership meeting like he was receiving another award. Meanwhile, I had received a request for operational notes on current continuity processes with supporting documentation. I smiled for the first time in weeks. I opened my red folder and laid out each piece of evidence like setting a formal dinner table. The contracts with conflicting clauses, my original policy owner documentation, the escalation records, the ignored legal email. Finally, Section 2C from the continuity framework with one clause circled in red. In the event of post-launch supplier failure, escalation must be processed through designated policy owner. All protocol modifications require board approval. I attached everything to a simple summary: operational governance overview, post-launch continuity assessment, 2 pages, neutral tone. Then I hit send. The boardroom was on the 40th floor, with windows overlooking Manhattan and a table polished to perfection. Chad stood at the head, cycling through PowerPoint slides about partnership expansion and 13% coverage increase. His slides included selfies with warehouse managers and upward graphs. I sat in the corner without a nameplate, just support staff. I had my real notebook on my lap, not Chad's display version. Brett. Sarah Reynolds, our COO, interrupted. Just one thing before we continue. Sarah placed my operational notebook on the table with a resounding thud. Who is the policy owner listed for our product's continuity framework? Chad's smile flickered. That would be legal or operations. Those old frameworks get updated constantly. I'm not asking who you think it might be. I'm asking who at Island. From my corner, I slowly raised my hand. No words. 12 heads turned. Nadia Vance, Sarah read aloud. Dated 6 months before launch. Signed, notarized, verified by internal audit. Chad exhaled sharply. That's an old designation, right? It doesn't affect current operations. Sarah took my summary. She's listed as sole authority for all escalation issues, including power to void supplier contracts if they bypass her protocols. That's exactly what happened. Twice. The room fell silent. Chad tried desperately. Sarah, this is just a technicality. These are great deals. We can approve this retroactively, right? Sarah stared. You think governance works like that? You bypass protocols, then ask forgiveness after the press tour? Ava Jordan, our general counsel, spoke coldly. Stop immediately, until this board reviews and votes. Otherwise, we're at risk. Chad made his fatal mistake. He turned to me. You could have said something earlier. You knew this would happen. I met his eyes with ice-cold calm. I sent it to legal. I flagged the clause. No one responded. Chad spun toward Ava, who shook her head. I missed it. But you never asked. Every board member now looked at Chad like they'd watched a magician accidentally sword himself. The notebook was pushed across the table to Chad. Sarah didn't speak. The gesture was heavy enough. Oh no, Chad whispered. A board member asked, Are you telling us these contracts are legally void? Ava nodded grimly. They were never legal. Continuing without a formal vote puts us at governance risk. I stood quietly, collected my notebook, and placed it in my bag. I didn't look at Chad. Thank you for allowing me to clarify, I said. If you need additional documentation, I'm happy to provide it. I walked to the door and stepped out without a backward glance. The door closed gently behind me. 3 hours later, I received an email from HR. Chad had been transitioned to pursue other opportunities. The board voted to void his contracts and return negotiations to proper channels, through me. The following Monday, I was called back to sit at the table. Sarah offered me Chad's position, along with a formal apology and doubled salary. We should have been reading the fine print, she admitted. You built something remarkable, and we almost let someone destroy it. I accepted on my terms. Full authority over protocols, direct board reporting, and written guarantee that my frameworks would be binding governance documents. 6 months later, Sterling Tech was featured on Operations Weekly's cover as the gold standard for supplier relations. My name was prominently featured as the architect of our success. Chad took a position with an Austin startup. His LinkedIn still claimed credit for scaling operational excellence, but anyone could see through the corporate euphemisms. I kept my red when folder as a reminder of the importance of documentation and patience. Sometimes the most powerful response to being undermined isn't confrontation. It's being prepared and letting people's actions expose their incompetence. My new office overlooked Manhattan. On my desk sat my original notebook and a small placard. Policy owner. I had learned that true power isn't about recognition. It's about building something so solid and essential it becomes impossible to ignore or steal. The Pandora Protocol, as I called my systematic approach, had served its purpose perfectly. Like the ancient myth, once opened, it revealed truths that couldn't be ignored. The difference was mine contained hope, that competence would be recognized and careful preparation would triumph over flashy incompetence. Chad's greatest mistake wasn't underestimating me. It was overestimating himself. He thought charisma could substitute for knowledge and proper procedures. In business operations, substance always defeats style. From victim of office politics to master of corporate governance, I had transformed completely. The champagne glass had stopped trembling. Now it was steady in my hand as I toasted successes that bore my name. The Pandora Protocol wasn't just about revenge, it was about justice and the quiet power of doing things right. Sometimes the most devastating response to being underestimated is proving, methodically and undeniably, exactly how wrong the other person was. In the end, Chad's greatest mistake wasn't underestimating me, it was overestimating himself. He thought that charisma and confidence could substitute for actual knowledge and proper procedures. He learned, too late, that in the real world of business operations, substance always defeats style. As I looked out my office window at the Manhattan skyline, I reflected on how much my life had changed in just 1 year. From the woman sitting in the back of the celebration to the woman running the show, from the invisible architect to the recognized expert, from the victim of office politics to the master of corporate governance, the champagne glass had stopped trembling long ago. Now, when I held one at company celebrations, it was steady in my hand as I toasted successes that bore my name and reflected my actual contributions. Chad had inadvertently given me the greatest gift of all. He had forced me to stop hiding my light under a bushel and start demanding the recognition I deserved. The Pandora Protocol wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice, preparation, and the quiet power of doing things right the first time. It was about understanding that sometimes the most devastating response to being underestimated is simply proving, methodically and undeniably, exactly how wrong the other person was. And in my new role, I made sure that every operational protocol, every governance document, and every policy framework was crystal clear about one thing. Competence and preparation would always be valued over charm and shortcuts. The next Chad who tried to steal credit or bypass proper procedures would find themselves facing not just documentation, but an entire system designed to reward substance over style. That was my real victory. Not just getting Chad fired, but changing the entire culture to ensure that what happened to me could never happen to anyone else. The Pandora Protocol had evolved from personal revenge into institutional protection, and that transformation felt like the most satisfying outcome of all.